Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. So you know that on my channel I cover different topics. Most of them, no, I guess all of them are now related to Norway. Although my niche in relation to Norway is as broad as Norway itself, and maybe I don't get so many views like millions and thousands, I'm still okay with that because I'm doing what I like. But still, if you want to support me, I would be very happy to see those millions and thousands. So do subscribe, press the like button, and make sure you are following my channel each and every time I'm posting a new video. So it's been a while since I posted a Norway related true crime video, and I tried to do it like once in a couple of months because it takes a lot of time to prepare. And you know that I have already covered like several stories that are quite popular throughout the world and everybody knows them, like Isdalwoman, Camboman. But today I decided to cover a story that's not so old. It's actually coming from the 90s. It's unsolved and there are still quite many questions that we cannot answer, and it's quite mysterious. So let's start.
It was 1996, one of the many picturesque tourist attractions in Norway, a place called Geiranger. A girl in her 20s was murdered, really horribly. The most mind-blowing thing about the case is the fact that more than 3,000 witnesses were questioned and close to 2,000 tips were received about the case. But despite this, still, the case is unsolved.
TRUDE ESPÅS, who was born in 1975, was actually the victim of one of the most discussed and quite horrifying unsolved cases in Norway.
On July 31st, 1996, Trude, a young girl full of life and energy, arrived at Geiranger. Geiranger is a village in western Norway at the head of Geiranger Fjord. It's a picturesque place with snow-covered mountain peaks, wild waterfalls and lush green vegetation. This area is also in the UNESCO list.
That being said, you can imagine how popular it was during the tourism season, and this is why local hotels and businesses actually needed some extra help. And that was the main goal of young Trude. She arrived to work as a maid in a local hotel union, and she arrived from Alta, where she was studying language. On August 8th at around 5 p.m. she was noticed going towards the city center. On that day, it's her day off, so she actually obviously decided to enjoy herself. She pops into the local post office, then goes to the grocery shop, and then moves along the highway towards outside of the center. This is actually confirmed by several witnesses who actually saw her, and outside the city she actually finds a nice place where to sit, to read a book and enjoy her day off. Seems like a lazy and very perfect day for just relaxation, except for the fact that on the next day Trude didn't appear at her workplace at the hotel union, and her colleagues actually started to get worried about where the girl is lost. On the next day, which was already August the 9th, one of her colleagues went to the police office to report her missing. As I mentioned at the beginning, Geiranger is actually surrounded by rocks, mountains, and beautiful nature. So this is why her colleagues were a little bit worried. Maybe she got into some kind of trouble, you know, like injured during the hike or something similar to that, and maybe she needed desperately for help and she couldn't come back. Or the worst scenario, maybe she fell from a rock and she had already died. Also, an important fact is that during the time when Trude got lost, there were around 5,000 people in the town, and 98% of them were tourists, which meant that even there were some kind of witnesses that saw her, there is a high possibility these people have already left on the next day because, you know, tourists, they move around. A big search is organized with people involved, dogs and helicopters. They also put out the information about the lost girl, and at this point there is still a hope to find Trude, but still they don't find anything. Then a man comes into office and he gives them a handbag and a book that he actually found on a rock a little bit outside the town. Several witnesses also come in and say that they actually saw Trude sitting on that rock and reading a book. Finally, a clue. So now the police is narrowing the search area specifically to that area where the rock is, where the handbag and the book was found, but they still don't find anything. So it's a dead end until August 19th. A married couple walks along the highway, and at one point they start to feel this very specific and unpleasant scent. This area is actually the area where the book and handbag was found, that same rock where people saw Trude reading the book. And so they just follow this unpleasant smell and they come across white shoes that are kind of squeezed between rocks, and then they call the police. The police starts the search again, and they find the body. It is covered in rocks, and the poor girl was sexually assaulted and killed. In several sources, I actually read that they found some traces of DNA on the body, but it wasn't enough to make a profile. So police actually assumed that Trude went down from the rock voluntarily because she left the handbag and the book, meaning she will come back and take it and maybe continue reading or whatever was her plan. And also, they believe that she was killed there, down where she was found, because that's a good place where nobody can actually notice it happening, because up there on the rock, it's quite a visible place. There's a highway with cars passing, and also it could be a little bit seen from the boat that is passing this place. So that was the only thing that police could assume about this murder at this point. Roine and Brigitte Loff, a Swedish couple, was in Geiranger during the time when Trude disappeared. They were actually among those witnesses who said that they noticed Trude sitting on the rock and reading a book. When they went on a walk, like on the highway, they saw Trude, but when they came back, the girl was already gone from the rock. Then, on their way back, after noticing that the girl is not anymore there on the rock, Roine suddenly started to feel like the call of the nature. In other words, he wanted to pee. And because they're in nature, they had to improvise. And Roine decided to take a little path off the highway just to do his natural things. So they were going on this path, and suddenly they were scared by this very high-pitched scream that actually, as they said afterwards, sounded like a child screaming.
Terrifying, high frequency, maybe a little panic cry if you think about it, a little hard somehow, but then it became quiet.
Brigitte, as a real woman, said, "Let's get the heck out of here." It sounds quite bad, but Roine was a really curious cat, so he decided actually to follow the scream, and there he saw this scene. So first of all, he was around 40 meters away from the people he was noticing, and he saw the following picture. So he saw a child that was laying against a cliff, and there was a man who was hovering or laying over this child. Well, I must mention that he thought he saw a child. He wasn't actually sure. And when this man noticed that Roine is staying there and looking at them, he stood up, he turned to Roine, and he just stand there weirdly and really, really creepy looking at him. And Roine afterwards said that there was a huge surprise in his face. He was scared, unprepared, or something like that. And now the weirdest thing, Roine assumes that that's just a kid and a father playing, something boo or peekaboo or something like that. So he wasn't even intimidated by the fact how this man was looking creepy at him. So, I don't know. But the fact is that Roine decided just to move forward. So he went to the nearest bushes to do his natural thing. And when he was coming back from doing this natural thing, the kid and the father were already gone. So, and when Roine again joins his wife Brigitte, who was waiting a little bit further on the path they were taking before, he asked if he's seen these two. And she said, "No, I didn't see anyone." So where did they disappear? One of the housemates, who was actually Trude's colleague, afterwards reported to the police an encounter with a really strange man. On the same day when Trude disappeared, this girl actually went to have like a relaxing moment, like lying on the rocks, maybe sunbathing, and she actually did it around half of a meter away from the place where Trude was noticed reading a book. So she was just lying there minding her own business, and then she noticed that a little bit farther from her there was sitting a man, and he was just sitting and staring at her, and he was doing it for around 20 minutes or something, and then he stood up, just approached her. Of course the girl was freaked out, and the thing that he did was he was just asking the time in German. So we can assume that he's a German tourist. And afterwards, according to this maid who was reporting to the police, this guy went towards the woods to the place where Trude was noticed sitting. So the maid afterwards actually tried to describe how this man looked, and a sketch was created. She described this man as a pale, shaven man with North European appearance, around 1 meter 85 centimeters tall, normal body build, gray-blue eyes, and dark brown hair. He was dressed in light shorts and short-sleeved polo shirt with horizontal stripes, blue and white background of these stripes. So basically that was the man they thought might be the killer of Trude at that point. This sketch was actually afterwards shown to the Swedish couple I was mentioning before, and Roine couldn't actually say if it is the same man, but the thing that he did remember was this creepy look in this man's eyes, as if he was just showing off some kind of real panic from the situation. All these years, Roine has been trying to remember details about this strange encounter, and also a fact is that he actually assumed that there was actually a child laying against the rock, so therefore he cannot actually say if this child was the same girl who was sitting on the rock and reading the book before. But the thing that tricks his mind up to nowadays is, where did they disappear when he came back after peeing? Because if it was like a normal father-daughter or whatever situation, normal people go back to the city on the highway, the same as Roine and Brigitte was doing. But when they went back to the highway, there was nobody. They didn't see anybody. So where did they disappear? Did they go somewhere further in the woods or rocks or whatever? So this is actually strange. I mean, this situation maybe could have been changed. Like, for example, if Roine had asked a normal question like, hey, is everything okay there? After the scream and after noticing both of them, you know, like maybe this man, if he was a killer, could get scared and just run away, leaving the girl there, and she could be saved. Or maybe could be another scenario. He could just jump on Roine and it could end like even worse. I mean, this is a tricky moment. I don't accuse Roine of not helping because he didn't know what's happening there, but still, like, it's just in my mind, you know, like this situation could have been the breaking point where everything could have been changed. So the police went through this room to search it for some kind of clues that could help for the case, and it appears that this girl was keeping a diary and was quite consistent in writing her feelings, like emotions or what she was doing. And in this diary they found a little note with some things that she had written down, and it actually became quite a turning point in the case and raised another confusing questions. So this note included several words. Maybe they were just like keywords that Trude wanted to write down so that she remembers what she has to write later in her diary. And this note was created on August the 2nd, 1996, and it included the following words: Elin, boutique, tiske, krikke. So what do these words mean? Elin was the name of Trude's colleague or the woman in charge of training her, so it's logic. The second word, which is boutique, it's in translation from Norwegian, it means store, shop, and maybe she just wanted to write down to remind herself to go on the August 8th when she has a day off to the grocery shop. The last two words, though, They are the most confusing, and they seem confusing up to nowadays. So one of these two last words is tysker, which from Norwegian means German. So German what? Maybe she was referring to some kind of German man. We don't know. And remember the man who was creeping on her colleague? What was she trying to remind herself? Was it a date? Maybe she was actually starting to flirt with some German guy. I don't know, like, you can interpret it as you wish. And the last word is the most confusing. Krikker. From Norwegian it means crutches. Why the heck she is writing down this word? Where do you get crutches in this context? I'm so confused. These last two words actually was a huge puzzle for the police, like for me too, until the year 2017 when they managed to crack this code, if I can say like that. So I must say that after TRUDE ESPÅS was found dead, there have been created so many podcasts, blogs, TV documentaries in Norwegian and also in German. And after one of these documentaries were shown on a TV show in Germany, police was reached out by a man called Norbert Bartling. He sent to Norwegian police an email saying that he knows what do these words mean. This German, Norbert, was actually on a vacation in Geiranger during that time. So he was there on the August 2nd, 1996, and he was taking some photos like tourists do, and he had this photo with a man who was actually on crutches, and the photo was taken exactly on August the 2nd, 1996. That's the day when TRUDE was actually creating this note, and that was a little bit before she was actually killed. So this makes sense. There was a man on crutches in Geiranger during that time. Later on, police actually found another witness to this man with crutches. So they went to Geiranger to meet this lady called Camilla Ronnenberg. She was 16 years old in 1996, and she remembers specifically on that day, August 2nd, 1996, that she met this man with crutches. She revealed to the police that this man was acting quite weird. He was asking to Camilla like very private questions, for example, where she lives, how far is her home, etc., etc. She felt like it's quite creepy. And this man was speaking German. After this man left her, after this discussion, she never saw him again in the town. According to the witnesses, TRUDE was in the city center on August 2nd around 4 p.m. and that was around the same time when Camilla had this weird conversation with this man with crutches. So, was this man the same she was mentioning in her notes before her death? I mean, I think that there weren't so many men with crutches in the town at that time, so I'm quite sure it was the same man, but why did she mention him? For a long time, the police had no clue about the exact time of TRUDE's death on the August of 8th, and they assumed that it's around 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. And it was based basically on the things that the witnesses were telling. In 2017, they finally managed to kind of narrow this time span from 5 to 6, and now they have more specific time of her death. As I said, August and summer in general in Geiranger was a tourist season, so many people were taking photos and videos, and the police went through around 11,000 holiday pictures that were sent to them to find some kind of clue. Maybe somebody accidentally took a photo of something happening on the background. And then they came across two photos that actually helped them to narrow the time span of her death and be more precise about it.
The first photo was called 5:15 photo because the boat from which it was taken left the port at 5:15. You see the red dot there? TRUDE was wearing red coat on that day, so this might be her sitting there. The second photo was taken at 5:26 p.m. Now, the red dot isn't there. Therefore, the police believe that Trude left the rock between 5:15 p.m. and 5:26 p.m. This also goes together with the timing of the Swedish people encounters with a strange situation.
It was quite hard to work with this case because, basically all the materials were in Norwegian, and I was trying my best to appreciate that with your likes and subscriptions, guys. But apart from that, I actually found a very valuable article on Reddit. I'm gonna leave a link down below. You can read. That person actually posts quite many interesting true crime stories. And in the comment section, as usual, there's like this discussion and people are just putting out their own versions and stuff like that. And then I noticed one of the commenting persons putting some links on YouTube videos. So I don't know like anything about this person or who was taking these videos, but I thought I'm gonna share this because I felt like that's quite exciting. These videos, these links to videos that this person was sharing were like simple vacation videos, people sitting in a boat and just filming everything they see. And these videos, as that person said, were filmed around mid-July or the end of July of 1996. It's a little bit before the time when Trude arrived and this terrible crime took place, so you're gonna see, it's gonna make sense. So in one of those videos, we can actually, like for a tiny moment, we can spot this one man who actually matches the description of the maid, the one who had this encounter with creepy German. Like this guy is wearing this striped polo shirt and he has dark hair and he really could be the same. You see, it's like a tiny moment, but still you can kind of draw some parallels there, and it's a little bit before Trude arrived there, so maybe if he's a tourist, he might be staying for 1 or 2 weeks and he might be around when Trude arrived and when this thing happened. I'm not accusing anyone, I'm just putting out the things that I saw. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Now, let's draw some conclusions and what we can get out from this unsolved case. First of all, the strange German man. So, as I said, there is this video, which creeps me out. But I personally think that this German man who was acting creepy with Trude's colleague a little bit before Trude disappeared and was killed was the man. I think it makes sense to think that this man in the striped polo shirt, this German guy, is actually guilty. And just follow my thought. Like, if I was that man and I saw like on some news or whatever around that they are looking for a man that looks like me, and I would remember my conversation with this maid, and she would claim that I am acting like a creep, and I just really wanted to ask, what time is it? I would just come out, go to police and say that I'm not guilty, like it was a normal conversation, I'm just like that, some people think I'm creepy, so that nobody thinks about him as a killer. But nobody came out, nobody said something like this, so maybe that guy, he got scared and this is why he wasn't saying anything. That's just my logic. How do you think? I also think, and I'm quite sure, that this German guy was the same that the Swedish couple saw, more specifically Roine. And I'm also quite sure that this German guy was the same guy that Roine saw, creeping over this, as he said, child. And I also think that he might have assumed that it's a child because at first he thought he heard a child screaming. So somehow down there in his mind, he already had this assumption of a child. And also the girl, if she was Trude, and I'm quite sure about it, she most probably was in a defensive pose, like this. Therefore, she looked smaller, and it also added up to this Roine's perception of the fact that he saw a child, not grown woman or young lady. Now the man with crutches, the mysterious man, he actually creeps me out. So considering his restricted abilities, I do not think that he can actually fight a young girl like who is in the best years of her life, because obviously she might be stronger than him. And another thing is, I don't think that he could be so quick moving around in the areas with rocks and, like wild nature. And Roine said that after the encounter with the father and child situation, both of them disappeared quite quickly. And if he was a man with the crutches or some kind of, injuries in legs or whatever, he wouldn't move so quickly. And also Roine didn't see any crutches with that man, so I don't think it's the same. So one option is that maybe, he was just like a simple man with crutches walking in the town, and he was just talkative, and this is why he was talking to young girls, and he was innocent. But there's another thing that kind of popped into my mind. So as I said, maybe he was involved, like on the 2nd of August, when this Camilla had this encounter with this man with crutches. And also we know that Trude was there. Maybe Trude just had a casual conversation with this man, and as he was asking all of these like private questions, maybe these questions was just to find a victim for that real killer. I don't know like what's their connection. Maybe they're both working together and getting some kind of creepy pleasure out of this. Maybe the main task of this man with crutches was to find a girl who has no relatives and friends there, who has no boyfriends and husbands or whatever, and maybe who feels a little bit depressed or worried or I don't know. And Trude maybe was the perfect one because there was nobody looking after her. She was all alone, and maybe it just slipped out of the tip of her tongue that she has a day off on October the 8th, and she's planning to go and sit and read book somewhere in the nature, all alone. And this information was passed to the real killer, who actually took advantage of this knowledge. I don't know, like I'm just improvising here. What do you think? So basically this is it about the case. It's quite mysterious, still a lot of questions unsolved, and it just simply blows my mind, and I would be really happy to hear your feedback about the story, your thoughts, and let me know also if you would like me to cover more of these like newer cases in Norway, because there are a couple of more that I noticed while doing this research. Yeah, just hope that one day they will solve this crime, because it's terrible. That being said, I'm gonna end this story here. Just gonna tell you guys, be safe, make good choices, don't go places alone where you don't feel like really safe. Norway is safe, so this is most probably why she wasn't thinking about that something might happen to her. And yeah, so apart from that, again, stay safe, but stay happy. And also stay healthy. Very valuable wishes to all of you. Bye! See you next time!